Jarrod Bowen has stated his intention to become a legend at West Ham United, and I'll tell you what, he's heading in the right direction. He joins us when in a relegation battle, has a big part to play in us staying in the Premier League. We've had him for nearly 4 years now. Sure, he had a quiet season last season, but even in the quiet season, he still rocked up in Prague in June and scored the winner in the European final to win us the Conference League, and now he's just shown his commitment to the club, signing a 7-year contract. I absolutely love it. Keeps heading in this direction, he will secure that legend status. But do you know what? I loved hearing it. I watched his interview this morning. Jarrod Bowen saying that he wants to stay here till he retires. He wants to become a legend at West Ham. He sees how former players are treated by the fan base and he wants that. Love it. He's saying all the right things. And do you know what? I believe him. Sometimes players will say these, he says things like this, you don't really believe it. But when Jarrod Bowen said it, I'll be honest with you, he's got me hook, line and sinker. Right? I'm convinced. I'm watching it. I think he does. He wants to become a legend at this football club. And I think he'll get it as well. But this is fantastic news for West Ham. And I think it's fantastic news for Jarrod Bowen as well, actually. Sometimes when a player renews their contract at your club, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's met with a fair enough kind of thing. Saw it coming, he possibly deserves it. It's not the biggest deal. Fine, we move on pretty quickly. It's not really newsworthy to some extent. But this Jarrod Bowen one was certainly newsworthy. And I have to confess, when it came out last night and the details came out, I practically celebrated. There was a little bit of get in. There was an element of that from me. Surprised that it's a 7-year contract, but it makes sense. We had to do it. We had to make him the highest paid player. We had to give him the 7-year contract to get him to sign on the dotted line. Because I've got no doubt Bowen's good enough to play at a higher level than what we are currently competing at. And the perfect example is our opponents yesterday. Would Jarrod Bowen get in the Newcastle 11, the strongest 11 when everybody's fully fit, everyone's on form? Could Bowen get into that Newcastle team? Absolutely, he could. I think that's the position at Newcastle that could be upgraded, that and left back. But Bowen plays in one of them, the right wing one. He'd have to dispatch Almiron. I think he's better than Almiron. I think Bowen would get in there. And if you agree with that, then you agree that he could play at a higher level because they're competing in the Champions League. We're not. Simple as that, really. So I think Bowen could go on and play for clubs playing Champions League football. So to have him secure his future at West Ham, massive deal, massive news. And sometimes as one party does better than others. Whether you're buying a player, selling a player, renewing contracts, it's tipped in favour of one rather than the other. But I think the club's done really well out of this. I think Jarrod Bowen's done really well out of this 7-year contract. I mean, it's unheard of at West Ham. I mean, to be fair, I didn't really hear of it much apart from Alan Pardew getting a manager's deal at St James's Park, and then Chelsea when they're trying to wangle FFP. But again, it makes sense from the club. Now the club had to do something to convince Jarrod Bowen, and there's this talk of a release clause and this is needed to get rid of it. If that's what's taken, then the club have done the right thing, I think, getting rid of it completely. Huge news, 7-year contract, highest paid player, as I said. I think the package now, the contract itself, will probably work out around about 45 million for West Ham over the 7 years. I think that's a bargain. Because how much would it cost to replace Jarrod? Now, granted, we would get a fee for him, etc., etc. But just go with me, will you? How much would it cost to replace Jarrod Bowen? It would cost more than that. It would cost more than 40 million. So I think this is a really good deal for West Ham. But it's a contract of intent to some extent. Because obviously our last big player that we tried to negotiate a contract with, Declan Rice rejected it and off he went to Arsenal. So I think it was important that we got this one done, that we tied down one of our most important players. In my opinion, he is our most important player. I think I've always thought that. I've thought it for a few seasons now. Those long-term subscribers will know this. I've thought Declan Rice has been our best player, but if you took Declan Rice out of the team, obviously this is 2 seasons ago, when Bowen and Rice were in really good form. If you took Rice out of the team, what's the chance of West Ham winning? It decreases, but not drastically, it decreases a bit. But if you took Bowen out, I think it would decrease quite a lot. I think Rice was our best player, I thought Rice was our most important. Now, I would argue that Bowen is still our most important player, but Paqueta is the best player. You took Paqueta out of the team, what's the chance of West Ham winning? It decreases. But I think you took Bowen out, I think it decreases further. He's got that goal scoring instinct about him, he's good for assists as well. I think his roughly it's about 1 in 3. He scores every third game since he joined West Ham back in 2020, and 4 years we've had him now, nearly just under 4 calendar years. He's been superb for 3 of them. Last season wasn't his best season, but even then, he still, like I said, he still popped up and scored the winner. This is unbelievable news. I was delighted when it came out, and it puts all the speculation to bed. We've been negotiating with Jarrod Bowen since April 2022, so it's 18 months. This is from The Athletic. 18 months ago, Mark Noble started negotiating with Jarrod Bowen and his representatives. I think it said Mark Noble, but he wouldn't have been in that role back then, would he? Anyway, but that was unable to happen. It was a bit of a slow process. 18 months is a long time, but Steiden sort of sorted out a little bit since he's come in. 7-year contract gives Jarrod Bowen the financial security that he potentially was looking for, and he secures his future to the club. So it's win-win. What's got me interested, though, I mean, like when all the speculation was going on last week, I didn't really believe it. Now, I didn't know anything. It's not like I had information to hand to that. But it's just a feeling. I think Bowen's got it good under David Moyes. Moyes will get a lot of criticism, etc. I'll be the first one to criticise Moyes for something. But I think he's managed Bowen fantastically well. Perfect. I think Moyes has been the perfect manager for Jarrod Bowen. Could a more attacking manager get more out of Jarrod Bowen? Potentially. But would he perform as well? I don't know. It's impossible to say. It's all hypothetical. It's all about opinions. But I think Bowen's had it good. He's had a manager that put him in straight away and has left him in the team. Even when he's been out of form, he stayed in the starting 11. And David Moyes has constantly had faith in Jarrod Bowen becoming good again when out of form. And he's been proven correct to do so. He's been played in what I think is his best position. I think Moyes has been a good manager for Bowen. I think he's had it good at West Ham. He's the poster boy of the club since Declan Rice left. He's become the player that West Ham use to say, have a look at this guy. Obviously, Paqueta and now Kudus will probably do better figures social media wise because of their name, because of where they're from. But I think Jarrod Bowen's become the poster boy for the club, and rightly so. Like I said, he got the winner back in June. His partner's family are big West Ham fans as well, and I think he's become one of these players that, a bit like James Collins, a bit like Carlton Cole, they rock up at West Ham. They're not a West Ham fan, but when they leave, they will be a West Ham fan. And I've got no problems with that. I quite like it, truth be told. But what I find interesting is what David Moyes is going to do now with Jarrod Bowen. Moyes has spoken in the past about potentially converting Bowen into a striker. When we got asked about replacing Scamacca, I was like, well, we've got Bowen. Bowen can maybe play there. And I've always found the signing of Mohamed Kudus quite interesting in that regards, because is it either to play Kudus through the middle, or are we going to put Kudus in Bowen's position and move Bowen up front? Because until now, Bowen's never really had competition at West Ham. Not really. There's players that can play there, but in terms of being good enough to put Bowen out the team, no. Is Kudus good enough to put Bowen out the team? I think he is. Not completely. It would be a case if Bowen was out of form for a few games, we'd say, well, let's put Kudus on the right. He's good enough to do what Bowen can do. But we know Moyes is never going to drop Bowen, and so he shouldn't. I wasn't saying Bowen should be dropped. Before someone suggests it, I'm not saying drop Bowen. I'm just saying, is Kudus, ability-wise, as good as Jarrod Bowen? I think he is, or I think he could be. So now we've finally got an alternative to Jarrod Bowen to play on the right. But the only way of playing them both together is either moving Kudus elsewhere or moving Jarrod Bowen. And I think we're going to see the latter. Moyes has hinted about it. We know the Mikel Antonio striker thing is coming to an end. We know that. I think Moyes knows that. We signed Scamacca, and when we did, Moyes pretty much put Scamacca in. Not straight away like that. He had to do the Conference League thing first. But by and large, Scamacca became our main striker pretty quickly under David Moyes. So Moyes is open to not playing Antonio as the main man up front. It's just that second half of last season, Scamacca was injured all the time, so it was Antonio. And Antonio is a bit like Bowen, funny enough, not really had competition. And when he did in Scamacca, he was put on the bench for quite a considerable amount of time. But now Antonio might find himself with competition in Jarrod Bowen. Kudus might be what just knocks Bowen into the striker role, which might knock Antonio onto the bench. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But what's impressed me about Moyes in the last couple of games Yesterday and Freiburg. Well, Freiburg was the one, wasn't it? We knew Antonio wasn't there, so what's he going to do? Is he going to play Ings up there? And I was dreading he would, and I thought he would. Or is he going to try Bowen up there and put Kudus on the right? And he did the latter. I was pleased. But there was still a part of me that thought, is he only doing this because it's European football? What we're going to do on Sunday if Antonio's unavailable? Now, obviously, Antonio was available of some sort, whether he was fully fit or not. He played, he started. But we needed a goal. And in the past, up until yesterday, when we need a goal, the subs have been Danny Ings. Danny Ings has been one of the first ones onto the pitch. And we've seen it, against Man City. We got some clues there where Kudus came onto the pitch with Ben Ram and didn't quite work. So there have been hints by Moyes that he's moving away from Danny Ings as sort of plan B. And yesterday I think I got confirmation that Danny Ings is no longer plan B. Plan B isn't Ings. It is now plan C. Plan B is now Kudus and Bowen. Bowen is striker, Kudus on the right. Now, it doesn't always work like that because Paqueta ended up playing as sort of the false nine again. But with this contract signed now, with this speculation put to bed, yesterday David Moyes got asked about Kudus. Are you going to start Kudus now? He's got come off the bench, got the equaliser. Now, while Moyes played it down, and I expected to, and I don't think we should read too much into it, but Moyes said he's here for years. Kudus, he's here for years, got plenty of time, and he's not wrong. He's signed a long-term contract. But now we've got two players, Kudus and Bowen, that are here for the long term, in theory. Of course, they could still move. A club could come in. And it doesn't even mean Jarrod Bowen, while he's signed a 7-year contract, doesn't mean he's going to be here for the 7 years. He could leave in 2. He could leave next summer. There's nothing stopping him. If Liverpool come in and offer 60 million, 70 million, start bidding for him, we'll soon find out how much Bowen must become a legend at West Ham. And I'd imagine he might get persuaded to go to Anfield. But what it does do, it secures Bowen's value. So if a club like Liverpool comes in, West Ham can turn around and say 100 million. He's got 6 years left on his deal. We're not selling him. So if you want him, you can have him for 100 million. So what we've done is made it very difficult for a club to obtain Bowen's services. Every player has a price. Bowen's just went up. But anyway, West Ham now sorted Bowen's future. Kudus is here for the long term. That now says to David Moyes, go on then. If you're going to change it now. Here we go. You've got your new striker in Jarrod Bowen. You've got your new right winger in Kudus. Now, I'm not saying this is what I want, to be clear. It's not what I want. But I'm trying to guess what David Moyes is going to do. And he's hinted about Bowen as striker. I wouldn't be surprised if during the season we see Bowen being that striker more and more and more. I wouldn't be surprised if our European striker is Jarrod Bowen. When we come back after the break, we've got Villa, then we've got Olympiacos. Don't be surprised if Bowen's a striker and Kudus is on the right, regardless of whether Antonio's fit or not. Because we've seen from Moyes that he likes to keep Antonio back, which is understandable. He has been injured, not anymore, but he has been injury prone. So I wouldn't be surprised if on Thursday nights we regularly see Jarrod Bowen up front and Mohamed Kudus out on the right hand side. And if it starts working on Thursdays, it won't be long till you see it on a Sunday afternoon either, because Moyes has shown he will drop Antonio. He's just not had anyone to drop Antonio for. Now we've got Kudus. I think we might have. Because I and other people have thought Souček's the one that's going to get dropped. But I think Moyes has shown Souček ain't getting dropped for Kudus. He'll get subbed off for Kudus, but dropped, no. So who's he going to drop then? I think it might be Antonio. And it might be so that Bowen goes up front. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Fantastic news. I'm buzzing about this, by the way. Honestly, I'm really, really happy with it. I was a bit uneasy with the speculation going around last week because I didn't really believe it, because I thought he's got it good at West Ham. I think Bowen will sign a new contract. But it was more hope. It was more gut feeling. That's all. There was no fancy information or anything like that. I just had a feeling that Bowen would stay with us. And he signed a contract of intent to stay with us, and if he's here for a few more seasons, it's 4 years now in January. In January it'll be 4 years since he signed. He's been fantastic for us, and it's good to see. I think this is an important one for the club. After losing Declan Rice, after being unable to tie Declan Rice down to a long-term contract, maybe the club have learned, because let's just say hypothetically Bowen did want a release clause. We successfully negotiated that out of the contract. for what it's worth, I wouldn't have been against it. As long as it was 80 million plus, which was a good deal for us, I wouldn't have minded a release clause in there. And I think something Charlie said to me yesterday in the watch along was a really, really good point. It shows what I think I had suggested, that it shows like players that if you're going to come to West Ham and perform well, you'll get rewarded. But what Charlie said is look at Declan Rice and Lucas Paqueta. Now, I don't necessarily agree with Charlie here. I think we were willing to sell Paqueta because we knew about the betting allegations. I think West Ham would have known that he was under investigation. That's probably why we were pretty keen to sell him to Manchester City for 85 million. Quick, before they discover, sell him, get the money, and we're all right. But Charlie's point was, we've shown that if Arsenal or Man City come knocking and you want to go, we're not going to stand in your way. We'll negotiate and we'll play hardball, but you can get your move. But on the other hand, if you want to stay at West Ham, we'll give you your contract. And I think that's a fantastic thing for West Ham. That's a great position to be in. To say, look, come play here. You want to go to Champions League club, you'll get to go to Champions League club. You want to stay here and become a legend, we'll give you the contract. We'll allow you to stay here and become a legend. Come here, commit, do it on the pitch, you'll get your rewards, whatever those are. This is a good time for West Ham, and this contract, this is a fantastic thing for us. Anyway, I'm buzzing, I'm going to disappear. If you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it, subscribe to Hammer's Chat, I'll catch up with you tomorrow.